Are you looking for better health but feel a little overwhelmed with it all, thinking there might be something missing? Maybe you're looking for action steps to take that get to the real root of the issue and actually move the needle in your health. Here on the Cornerstone Integrative Healing Podcast, we will share the link between our physical, emotional, and spiritual health, all while pointing you to the one and only true healer, Jesus. I'm Kari, Coody, your co-host. As a pharmacist turned integrative health practitioner, I spent 20 years in the traditional healthcare world, and it was definitely long enough to know there's a huge need for preventative healthcare and holistic healing. I'm excited to have conversations around these topics with my co-host and friend, Jenn.
Hey, I'm Jenn Patriarca. God gave me this desire to help others with natural healing a long time ago. With more than 20 years of experience in the functional nutrition field, God decided it was time to join forces. Kari and I are colleagues turned faithful partners in this mission God has put on our hearts. A mission for true healing, one that encompasses an integrative approach. With Jesus taking the lead, our aim is to point you toward Him as we help you peel back the layers. Through conversations, you can expect straightforward information on holistic health topics that include physical, emotional, and spiritual action steps that will create real change in your health, and honest conversations around the ups and downs that can come with healing. It's time to have joy in your life again and the energy to do all that God has called you to. Be sure to subscribe for new episodes every Monday.
Hey guys, it's Kari here, and welcome back into the podcast. I'm here with my co-host Jenn, and we're just really excited to have a spirit-led conversation, let's say, around just the things that he's been showing us in our own journeys. And we just really pray that they would encourage, that this conversation would encourage you to just seek him and to honestly give a really good look at maybe what we have been carrying around for months, years, however long, that is really heavy. And it's just honestly distracting from, him speaking to us and what he wants to do in our lives. So Jenn, do you want to start off with just sharing how you kind of, he really allowed you honestly to see where some of the emotional things that were maybe in the background were relating, and how they were relating to your physical symptoms that you were feeling?
Yeah, I'd love to. So, obviously the theme, if you've been listening, has been, our focus has really been toward mind, body, and spirit and how they're all connected. And so I just feel like God has really been showing me the connection between some of my physical symptoms that I sort of always blamed in the background on Lyme, that are really just long-standing repressed emotions, right? Long emotions, like back childhood emotions, probably, that I've been carrying. And hopefully, we hope that you will sort of maybe put some pieces together in your own life. This is super vulnerable, and I hope that it will be useful for you guys, because I think it's not something that's talk about often, right, here? Like, we just don't talk about kind of the messy, and this is a little messy. So, kind of long story short, there's just some long-standing anger and resentment that I think I've been carrying around my mom. My parents were divorced when I was really little, and my mom wasn't around. And I had a great childhood, but I think below that, was a lot of resentment that she was not around. And a lot of anger. And they say anger is really a mask for a different emotion. And for me, God really has been showing me that was fear, right? Fear of kind of not feeling safe. And so, basically what God sort of showed me was that anger and resentment, which I've been carrying for so long, really was probably the most of the root of my fatigue, right? So in Chinese medicine, the liver is linked with anger and the gallbladder with resentment. And so, there was a doctor, he was a really smart, he was a DO. Anyway, he just talked about how, when you're get up and go, got up and went, basically that it's usually liver, and that could be physical or emotional. And I just feel like God really showed me that anger that I was carrying, which affects my liver really, really, is the root of my fatigue, which I sort of blamed on Lyme forever. And some of that right before I sort of got into remission with the laser was, and if you've been listening, you sort of heard that story, but I just want to kind of put those pieces together for you because I didn't see it. And I think a lot of us don't.
Yes, I
Right? I
agree.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I just think that okay, Jen shared a little bit about her childhood and while hers might be vastly different than yours, I think that we all have things in our past that maybe we just have left in the past, which is not a bad thing, but we might not have ever really dealt with those things.
Correct.
And I think that it's easy to say, oh, well, my childhood's not like Jen's, so I'm fine. And while that's great if that's the case, I do think though it's like these things are the enemy's really sneaky in how he just works. And I think sometimes we just kind of forget about things that have happened and we're just carrying them around in our little backpack, I guess, if it would be a good way to think about it. And over time it does get really heavy. And I think that putting these pieces together is a way that we can heal. And it also made me think when she was sharing that, it just made me think how anytime we put our faith in something else, we're going to get let down. And of course, as a child, that's just normal to put our faith in our mom and in our dad. But it just makes me think about even as we grow up, we put our faith in different things and we put our hope in different things. And so,
Sure.
I was actually reading this book by Ann Voskamp called Waymaker, and it was just saying like the way that we heal trauma is detachment from it and attachment to God. It can't be detachment from it and attachment to anything else because that's not truly going to heal and give us the peace that we desire. So that's just what it made
And
me
it
think.
doesn't have to be. Go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
you're fine.
And I was just going to say, it doesn't have to be necessarily childhood trauma. You could
Yeah,
have gone through, a really traumatic, maybe death of a parent or an illness of a child that you've struggled with, or fill in the blank. So, right, it doesn't need to go all the way back to childhood. But I think if you've struggled with something that you really haven't openly dealt with, and we're, as humans, it's not something that we kind of do at a default, is kind of sit with our emotions, right?
Yeah.
Deal with them. We're taught to numb, right? We're taught to, excuse me, there's a drug for that, right? You're depressed, there's a drug for that. There's an anxiety, there's a drug for that. Instead of, why don't we acknowledge that emotion, right? Why don't we like sit with the emotion, be uncomfortable, and trust me, I am the queen of let's numb it, right? I think and I'm with you, but I think for a lot of people, and I see this in clients all the time, and Kari, you do too, they're struggling with physical symptoms, but I think there's a lot of underlying repressed emotion, specifically traumatic events, stress, chronic stress that they just haven't acknowledged and dealt with.
Yeah. I think that most women can relate to just feeling the need to keep going and just like,
Right.
and in feeling and it's just like we as women do carry and wear a lot of hats. And
Yep.
I do agree that it's easier to just keep going and not
Yes.
sit with these things and not really take a self-examination and honestly what it was for me is these last few months has shown me is that distractions are huge in just really
Amen.
hearing from him. And I mean, what have we gotten more of in the past, 10 to 20 years, 5 years even? Like we are more distracted than we've ever been, and it's only getting worse, right? As far as if we follow culture or if we just go the way of the world. And so I think that a lot of what we're saying to do would involve decreasing some distractions and really taking the time to pause and get out of your regular routine even. And I get that that's not easy and sometimes that takes a little planning, but I think so much more of it is in our control than we think. This little device
100%.
right here is just sometimes I just want to go throw it in my pond. It's like, it's just always there. The phone, I held up the phone if you're listening to the podcast. So but I think we do have to remember we always have a choice. We don't think we have a choice, but we do always have a choice.
And I don't think you always need to do what you think you quote unquote need to do. I think we mentioned this before. If you truly take a step back and ask God, really, what is the necessities for what you quote unquote need to do? I think you'll be surprised at the answer. I think you'll be surprised that you don't need to run around as much as that you do. And when you don't, when you are still, those emotions start to well up and they start to come to the surface and they start to say, hey, remember me? Like, hey, what about, I think your body and your nervous system are literally waiting for you to deal with those emotions. And it's literally just taking that time to be still, to let those emotions sort of well up and to be uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
Be uncomfortable. It's not going to be a pleasant process. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. It's not always fun to let these emotions come to the surface. And they're hard emotions. They're really hard, but we don't have to do it on our own, right?
Yeah.
We are really called to hand them over to God and he will carry them and heal them for us, right? That's what we're called to do. If we let them, right? We're all stuck in our own self-reliance, I think is part of the problem also.
Well, it made me think of a recent podcast episode that I recorded, the one that just by myself, it was just talking about how he's shown me what true strength is. And it makes me think about how a lot of times us women, we do want to feel like we're in control and we're strong and we've got everything under control. I feel like a lot of times that's the goal, but scripture tells us that, true weakness, true strength, is when we realize our weakness and we give it to him. And this is part of that process. There's so many physical things that show up when we fight and we resist what God is trying to do. And when we do that for years and years and years, it's going to show up in a lot of different ways. And oftentimes it's physical things that, people are coming to us for help in. And it's just not, you can take all the supplements, you can eat all the right foods, you can do all the right things, and you still are not getting to where you want to get. And to me, that's a God's invitation. It's his invitation to say, I have you here for a reason. And we have to keep asking why, why are we here? What do we need to learn? And he's going to show you, but it does take stillness. It does take time, limiting distractions and really seeking his voice, reading his word. And that's not always something that it's easier to continue to take the supplements and just try to figure out what else we need to eat right or what else we can do that way. But this is the work that I've seen. And I think what Jenn is saying, she has seen in her own life that really produces the results, if you will, that we're looking for. Like we're looking for more peace, right? And you can only find it in him.
Right. And I think we stay busy to distract us maybe from the pain of the emotion, right? The hardness of dealing with the emotion. We stay busy because then we don't have to deal with the emotion. And I don't think I realized that until I stopped and slowed down this past month.
Yeah.
And, I was encouraged by Kari, of course, to really, and I fought it. Kari's smiling. She's laughing. For those listening, because, I was thinking, well, what's this going to do? And it shocks you how much, really just you use distractions as a way to sort of numb and not deal with those emotions. So what I want to tell you is when I wasn't distracted, I was able to piece together that fatigue, that relentless underlying malaise was really emotional. It was the anger and the resentment that I had suppressed for so long. And I'm not through it, right? I don't want to pretend like I'm through it, I'm done it, and we have all the answers, because that's not it at all. And really, I'm just beginning the journey of sort of healing those emotions. They're, pretty well deep down there. And as I mentioned before, there's other emotions. So every time anger and resentment comes up, it's hinged on that original event or original events. And so it just takes a while to sort of dig through that. And there are other good things to help you. Of course, if we mentioned tapping, which is a beautiful way, NET, neuroemotional technique, which is a beautiful, just really good way to get to the root of that emotion. Obviously, prayer is your number one. But there are things to help you out there, and we'd love to, hear about your journey and help direct your steps, to really help you with, again, not only the physical symptoms, but maybe some of the emotional roots to those physical symptoms.
Yeah. And as we just kind of close, we really hope this is an encouragement to you. And we do want to point you back to scripture. It was funny how God just kind of showed us this. It's like, these things, but then it's just like on a whole nother level, like, oh, how did I forget about this? And so in Psalm 139, it's just a sweet prayer to pray every day, like, search me, God, and know my heart and know my thoughts, and just redirect them. Honestly, like, we have to take every thought captive and give it to him, because he's really the only one that can do this change in us, a change that's going to last. And having that attachment to him is just so key, right? We as humans think we need to figure it out and we need to do these things. And that's not what we're saying. We're saying you need to give it to him, and you need to be more attached to him and more in tune with his voice. And just, yeah, that is not a linear thing. It's different for everyone. And there's no time stamp on when it's going to be done. It's really just a journey. And it's a beautiful one, though. And it's one filled with everything that you wanted, that you thought you could get from worldly things. He has what you're looking for on so many more levels than you even realized. And so I just hope that that's encouraging to you. And we would honestly love to just hear feedback or thoughts around these topics, or really more than anything, how we can pray for you, because that's the best thing that we can do is, and honestly, I'm so proud of Jenn for wanting to share this, because it is hard to share these things and to honestly put them out there to the world. But I truly believe that's how we heal, is we do share these things and we are vulnerable, because that connects us to other people. And so I'm really excited to see what comes from this. And we would love to hear from you again, how we can pray for you, or just your experiences with this subject. So thank you, Jenn. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah. Keep following along. It's not over. The journey's not over.
Yes. Amen.
We give you more insights.
Yes. We'll see you on the next episode.